Good day. We are Team Three, and we will be discussing what is strategic management really, inductive derivation of consensus definition of the field. My name is Tamika Harris Autry. My colleagues are Camilla Jenkins, Sahai Williams. During our presentation, we will discuss the scope of research, the theoretical motivation, the research techniques and methodology, findings and interpretation, positioning, and positioning in the literature and contribution to the literature, strength of the article, shortcomings and flaws, future research opportunities. The first presenter will be my colleague, Camilla.
What exactly is strategic management? The research done in this study was determined to answer that question once and for all, after years of ambiguous meanings and definitions. In order to get closer to a more concrete definition, it was important that researchers honed in on the foundations of a variety of fields that intertwine with strategic management. The studies that were completed strive to determine an implicit and explicit basis for what represented strategic management and what it meant. Implicitly, the first study was used to determine whether or not a specific abstract classified as SM or non-SM. The study would then give insight on what words implicitly triggers one to identify what is SM and what is not. Explicitly, the second study gathered scholars from the following fields to establish what SM means to them based on their conjunctive words: economics, sociology, marketing, and general management. This study would then give more substantial definitions of what strategic management really is, with experience from a variety of professions and fields to back it up. Overall, the researchers' sole purpose was to bring clarity and awareness to a field that has been misunderstood and overlooked for years on end. Next up, we'll hear from my colleague Sahai with theoretical motivation.
Thank you. If the writer highlighted a lack of interest in answering the fundamental question, what is strategic management? The writer aimed to develop an agreed upon, acceptable, inclusive, and formal implicit and explicit definition of strategic management. He seeks the viewpoint of scholars within the strategic management field who also have experience in the other fields. With this accomplishment, strategic management can be established as an academic field with its own identity and distinctiveness. It isolated 6 categories of various strategic initiatives, with each adjacent field exhibit striking similarities with its definitions, such as performance, firms, and environment. The research technique and methodology. A panel of strategic management authors rated 447 titles and abstracts from leading management journals to determine whether they represented strategic management articles or not, namely Academic of Management Journal, Academic of Management Review, and Administrative Science Quarterly. 385 were accepted because they had the most consistent, so they were further divided into strategic management and non-strategic management categories. The articles were liberally selected, focusing on the overall organization analysis of the roles associated with general managers. Articles from strategic management journals were excluded in Study 1 to avoid bias. The articles covered a 2 decade to capture a broad perspective on the field. Lexicographic automated text analysis was conducted on the abstract to identify the distinctive vocabulary specific to strategic management. 54 words appeared more in the strategic management abstract than in non-strategic management abstracts. Those words were then placed into conceptual groups, align them with prior definition of the field. 6 elements were identified as implicit consensual definition of strategic management based on the categorized vocabulary. The classification scheme was then tested for validity using both the original sample and an additional sample of abstract from articles published in the Strategic Management Journal. The results demonstrated that the articles were highly accurate in being assigned to strategic management or non-strategic management. The logistic regression was used to conduct testing of the 6 elements to determine its validity. The dependent variable in the study was the abstract, and the independent variable was the 6 binary variables. For study 2, it aimed to identify the explicit definition of the field. The writer surveyed 57 boundary spanners or scholars who recently published in the Strategic Management Journal, along with another journal from the other subgroup, namely economics, sociology, marketing, or mainstream management. The articles were included from the Strategic Management Journal in study 2 to also validate study 1.
The first study gave strategic management authors an array of abstracts to rate on whether or not it would classify as an SM article. The authors rated 385 out of 447 articles as SM, with strong agreements between them, resulting in a positively significant correlation. After reviewing the results, researchers discovered that there was a collection of words that specifically correlated to SM abstracts versus those that were non-SM abstracts. The Logit model confirmed said results as the group of authors were consistent in their pickings of SM articles, along with the words that were included in them continually. This gave researchers a new basis to go by when it comes to classifier words to correctly identify and describe SM as a field. The second study took scholars from 4 different disciplines that coexist with SM and tasked them with defining the field concretely. The group of scholars came to a general consensus of what the field means, although the language of their definitions varies based on their work differences. In all of their definitions, performance was emphasized, and firms were described as the analytical unit for the field. According to the marketing field, strategic management is a field about what drives performance of certain business and which strategy works. Among the 4 groups, all of the definitions are similar to said definition in the sense that they focus on how businesses perform and through which firm they will strategize with to meet optimal goals. Overall, the studies did bring clarity to the meaning of strategic management and provided an array of definitions that can be trusted and used to understand the field better.
Now, there were the 54 words that we've already heard that my 2 colleagues discussed, but the statistically significant positive association suggested that they appear significantly more often in abstracts pertaining to strategic management than those pertaining to non-strategic management. In terms of positive correlation, strategic and firm top the list. Other terms that were positively correlated with one were diversification, CEO, and risk. Sample of 57 consisted of 4 subgroups, scholars who are active at the intersection of SM, which is economics and sociology, marketing, and mainstream management. And strategic management researchers used a common definition that prioritized financial shareholders and profit-seeking firms over other stakeholders, allowing them to frame discussions on the field's future and changes. And then one of the most important advantages of this approach is that it gives academics in the subject of strategic management a chance to shape the discussion around their vision for the discipline's future. For instance, the financial stockholders, as I stated before, it takes precedence over the stakeholders, and everyone gets a chance to determine what strategic management means to them. And our next slide will show the 4 subgroups, the work that they came up with, the various definitions that they have here. And our next slide will show the words, the strong words that they use to correlate together for the definitions. And our next slide, it shows the same as well as we spoke about our firm words, and you see those words here, the growth advantage, return, decline. Those words there are examples of what those 4 subgroups came up with. And the strength of the article. I'm sorry. The strength of the article. The success of strategic management can be ascribed to its ability to achieve consensus and include intellectual diversity, which is similar to Durkheim's conception of mechanical and organic solidarity. Mechanical solidarity is categorized by a collective adherence to common views, whereas organic solidarity promotes the autonomy and independence of individuals. We had Rodriguez and Ruiz in 2004 that conducted a study on the cognitive structure of strategic management using co-citation analysts. Co-citation analyst is a distinctive approach to examining the intellectual structure of science. The co-citation analyst is the process of monitoring pairs of papers that are cited together in the source article. Clustered of studies emerge when multiple authors co-cite on the same pairs of paper, and the papers that are mentioned together in these clusters typically have a common theme and in words. And so basically what this is describing here, and as we see in the example, as 2 papers coming as one, and that's what that is what the co-citation analyst would bring. So you have your 2 different citings here, and they look for different words to bring one to the paper. And we have our other example here with that shows Durkheim, his concept.
The shortcoming and flaws. There was a limited scope in the sense the pool of articles considered were strictly from management journals, omitting strategic management articles from related fields such as economics, marketing, and sociology. The geographical bias stands in the sense that the articles were only drawn from US-based journals, excluding journals from other parts of the world, although some raters were based outside the United States. In terms of selecting journals, the analysis focused on high-impact journals only, based on the citation tracked by the Social Science Citation Index, excluding influential journals like the Harvard Business Review and less prominent academic journals and books not directly linked to management. The demographic of the study, the study failed to capture the input of any other group of strategic management, including workforce or personnel such as students, professors, and everyone who has never published in the strategic management journal.
Though the research completed provided new insights that were needed for the field and its professionals to progress, there is always room for innovation. One future research idea was to rerun the second study 5 to 10 years down the line to see if society and the prospective fields that were studied have transformed enough to cause the scholar's definition of what strategic management is to change. Another research idea that was proposed by researchers was to use strategic management as a way to determine what differences about other fields steer people to come up with the decisions and works that they do that could advance SM research. After reading the article, it is important to note that only a certain demographic of people was used for these studies. Therefore, it may be beneficial to expand the current studies to other groups or run a new study altogether to compare the new demographics definitions to those that were discussed within this presentation. Lastly, it could also help to center an experiment inside of a Fortune 500 company to examine how they utilize and define strategic management, along with how it has positively or negatively impacted their business.
So in closing, consensus refers to the alignment of strategic priorities amongst among leaders and managers at all levels of organizations achieved via a shared understanding and a unified commitment. So what we did was we come together, Team 3, and here's a definition that is commonly used for strategic management. Is the process of setting objectives, analyzing the competitive environment, developing strategies, and allocating resources to achieve long-term original goals. Now, you can have a discussion amongst yourselves as to how you think that the definition of strategic management should be applied and what it means to you. But as Team 3, we trust that you have gained knowledge from the presentation. What is strategic management really? Inductive derivation of consensus definition of the field. And we hope that this may help you achieve your future goals. And thank you for attentive listening.